All right, everyone, welcome back to another One Up XP Show podcast. Today, we are going to the southeast corner of the state as Oakland University, the Golden Grizzlies. I was told not to forget the golden part. The Golden Grizzlies down in Oakland, they have a great esports program, and we're going to be checking in with them. But first, of course, we have to have the intro.
Here we go! Okay, let's go!
The intro never gets old. One Up XP Show, and I still have not changed the graphic. I apologize, Dan. I know Dan's going to get on it. That's news director. I'm sorry, Dan. I haven't changed that graphic yet. But we pull in Carl Leone. You got to put the pronunciation on it, though. Carl Leone. Italian. Do you ever get sick of the Italian jokes? Or
No, not at all, actually.
I just had to make
50%
sure.
Italian, so I'm definitely proud of it. Doesn't get old at all. So I think
My
it's
brother-in-law
actually
is down from your way and is Italian too. I think there's just a lot of you guys running down there.
yeah.
I mean,
I think there's
Detroit
definitely a migration to Detroit at some point in time, but I'm not a history buff, so don't ask me.
All right, so we know you're at Oakland University right now. The Golden Grizzlies. I didn't leave that out just for you because I know I don't want Oakland mad at me here. I don't want Grizzlies coming after me. The Golden Grizzlies. And I am so happy to have you on the show, brother. Carl Leone, a coach there, the head coach of the esports program there at Oakland. Now, we know you're Italian, but let's get the history on you. More history, the gaming history, where you're from, how you got to where you're doing, what you're doing, the gaming history, all of it. And in fact, don't leave out Robert Morris because that is a very interesting fact in itself. But let's start with the background on Carl. Give me the background, brother.
Yeah, so actually, it's really interesting story, and I think I'm very fortunate with the way it fell together. I always feel like I just kind of fell into the positions that I'm in, but there's certainly hard work that came with it. But
right.
The really nice part about my story, especially coming back to Oakland, is I grew up in this same area in Southeast Michigan.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
I grew up in Lake Orion. It's about a 15-minute drive from Oakland University.
Or if you're from Northern Michigan, it's Lake Orion.
Oh, Lake Orion. Yeah, if you want to pronounce it incorrectly, that's fair. You can go with that.
We always pronounce it that way. I'm sorry, we're getting on a sidetrack here. We always pronounced it as Lake Orion growing up. And then I ran into someone from Lake Orion, and then they're like, what lake? I was like, Lake Orion. You mean Lake Orion? All right, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, now you got Lake Orion correct. You got my last name correct. You got Golden Grizzlies correct.
We're all over it, man.
We're doing definitions today. So, so I actually grew up Lake Orion, went to Lake Orion High School. After I graduated, went to OCC, so right down the street from Oakland University.
Yep.
My entire life, I've been gaming nonstop, huge infatuation, addiction, if you want to put it that way. But really lightheartedly, I'm putting it that way. But I absolutely love video games my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Decently talented at League of Legends specifically.
There you go.
I was recruited to Robert Morris University in Chicago. That was in 2014. It was actually the first school in the country to offer gaming scholarships under the athletic program. So 2014, I was one of the very first 35 players in the country to ever get a scholarship.
That's wild.
For gaming.
I love that. I love that part. And the thing is, it's 2014. That was 7 years ago. I mean, that's before most of Twitch took off. I think it was still Justin TV back then. I mean, Twitch wasn't around then. I joined Twitch January of 2015. Like, you were there before a lot of people, brother. That's awesome. So continue on with Robert Morris. You got a scholarship, the first scholarship offered in the country. And then where'd you go from there?
Yeah, so I graduated from Robert Morris. So I was there all 4 years, played on the League of Legends team there as a jungler.
Awesome.
We were actually a top 8 in North America all 4 years that I was there and competing. 2 of the years we got second place overall. We could not win the finals. Who was the running joke.
Who's it that you faced in the finals?
It was always University of British Columbia or Maryville University.
Maryville.
Always the teams that knocked us out. I think actually it was twice University of British Columbia and then twice Maryville knocked us out. So
gotcha.
A bit unfortunate there, but you know what? There can't be champions without second place teams.
That's true. So, that's true.
And at the end of the day, nothing wrong with silver when you're talking about
No, not at all. Especially
So-
in, I mean, I don't even want to call it the birth of esports, but I mean, that was early on. I mean, you cannot be upset when you're the first
No.
program, in the country to offer scholarships, and you're taking second place. I mean, that is awesome. I mean, that's top tier. I mean, that's awesome. I mean,
Yep.
I love that story in general. That's why I said don't forget it. Obviously, you wouldn't forget
Yeah.
it, but I just love that story in general.
A great experience for me for sure. It was definitely, it's not like we had it all figured out. It's not like the administration had it all figured out at the
Right.
time, of course, with anything, at the very beginning, but it was a great experience.
Mhm.
And one thing if I could give a quick shout out.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Two things that I think really left or really started collegiate esports in general.
Mhm.
One of them being Riot Games putting on the Scholastic Association, the RSAA, giving out huge scholarship money for that pool. During those years, I think it was 2014, 2015, they had a prize pool where the winning team, each student on the winning team would get $30,000 of
That's
scholarship
wild.
money. An insane amount of money.
Yeah,
that amount
insane.
has gone down, but that prize money is one of the reasons why Robert Morris University and other schools to follow could justify building an athletic program because
Correct.
there's just so much money on the line.
Yep.
And not just first place, like second place was 15,000 per student.
Yeah. That's still a lot of money. Because I mean, if you go to a public university, that might cover your entire year. 15 grand back then. Like I went to a private school in 2004 to 2008, and it was about 25 to 30. So I mean, granted, that will pay for an entire if you got first. Even second, that takes half of your, payments to school out of the equation. That's huge. And that was on Riot's shoulders.
Riot Games. So
that's awesome.
I don't want to put it this way, but I literally got a check in the mail from Riot Games for being on the second place squad. Incredible. I mean,
that's pretty cool.
People talk to me, was it worth grinding all those hours? I'm like, yeah, it was. It literally paid for my education.
Yep.
Robert Morris University gave me a scholarship to go, and then Riot gave me a check for scholarship money too. And the only reason why I'm putting it out there is not really to gloat. It's to say I probably would not have gone and graduated college just from where I was financially without this opportunity. Yeah. So that's a big reason why I'm in the position that I'm in today, is one, because of that experience, and two, because I have a real passion for it and I want to give back that same opportunity to students now. Just feel really fortunate that I'm in the position I am. So anyway,
amen, brother. Amen.
Push forward past that, right? So after graduation, I went to Aquinas College as a volunteer position to lead the League of Legends team as a head coach. Coached that team for 1 year. I actually won the NACE 2019 League of Legends Coach of the Year that year.
Nice.
For my efforts. So that was an amazing experience. I worked under Adam Antwer, Aquinas College head esports coach, amazing person, incredibly generous. So that'd be another shout out that I'll give. I've never seen somebody in a professional organization work so hard to benefit people who are volunteering for the program. There's a joke out there in amongst my peers where it's the Adam Antwer coaching tree, because literally 3 or 4 of his volunteer coaches now have full-time head coach positions outside of it. Because of our efforts, but because of his effort to push us push us applications and help us get those jobs.
And I'm looking to get Adam on the show. As you mentioned, you were with him at Aquinas. He just recently took a new job down in Florida. I'm letting him get adjusted and acclimated before I push him to be on the show. But as soon as I went to reach out, he unleashed some big news on Twitter that he had just got a big gig, South Florida, right?
Florida Southern.
That's who it is.
So yes, you got it.
Yeah. That is where he's at, and we will reach out to him and see if we can get him on the show at some point. But like you said, many people have also echoed that Adam is a huge, he's just a huge branch in the esports tree, if you will. Same with people like Doc. Same with people that really started the whole esports trend with colleges picking up programs. And that's what we're really trying to get to, is get to the base of that trunk of this tree and see why it's doing what it's doing. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, with the scholarships and the opportunity to go to get your education for free, not only in video games, but also in casting or game design or anything that falls under the video game tree. We want to see why and how exactly, because everybody wants to know how in the history, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
just, I mean, you know, it's video games, but why? And that's a big question. I mean, you always go through life saying why. And when you dig deeper, like I've found through my 6 years of streaming and being in an organization and pro, you take lefts on avenues that you might not say, why am I going down this avenue? But when you do, you're like, oh my, look at all this stuff. And look at all this stuff that you're uncovering for the first time or might be the first person down that path. And that's how esports is right now. And that's how you were when you went to Robert Morris. Robert Morris said, hey, what happens if we do this? And look at it now. I mean, that's crazy.
Really,
so it's insane. So now I interrupted and tangented you again. Feel free to continue.
No, you're okay. I'll you know, what's funny is when I first got picked up to Robert Morris, or I first got the offer, I had many people tell me that it was actually a scam, that it wasn't true, that you couldn't get a scholarship for gaming because it just had never happened before.
I mean, it makes sense though, you know, when you see it for the first time, like this can't be real. Yeah. Like it's the old adage or the old saying that if it's too good to be true, it's not, you know? And sometimes here's the case in point. It was true and it was awesome and it worked.
Yeah.
So
cool.
It's that way.
Really, really quick story. I'm just going to keep going back.
Go for it.
Now I've got nostalgia and I'm loving it. When I was first contacted from Robert Morris University, right?
Yeah.
High level player. They actually put an ad out on Facebook. I responded to it. So that's how I got involved. I got on some list and the band director at Robert Morris University called me and said, hey, you know, we got your application, blah, blah, blah. I'm actually the band director, so I don't know what any of this means. We just got way too many applications and we don't know how to deal with it. So I don't know what diamond mean. Is that good? You know, and so it's just really funny to me that they got so much that not only like in athletics, they had to deal with it, but the band director is calling me and he's asking me about what my rank actually means. And
that's
stuff.
hilarious, dude. That's so funny. Everybody underestimates the power of video games. Like NMC had the same issue. I interviewed Dr. Terry Gustafson up there, who's the director of esports at NMC. And she's like, we opened a Discord and within a day we had over 100 people interested in what was happening. I was like, the power of video games, especially when you throw out a Discord link nowadays, you know it's for video games in general. And then when you see it's a college, you have to associate it with esports. And it's like everyone's like, ooh, what's going on here? So the power of video games, man, it is very, very strong. I rank it up there right next to Mother Nature. Like, sometimes the wave is just too strong to hold.
It's incredible.
It's wild.
That blows administration out of the water every time we talk about some of the figures. You know, first year when we first opened up applications for the program, I had 250 people apply to be in the program.
That's wild, man.
And so my tryouts, I had to slim down from 250 to just 50 people so that I could sign 15. And that was an incredible experience for me because it was just, oh man, I can be so picky, and we have such talented players already at OU, and we have players who are not at OU who are really talented, interested in coming. And God, I gotta tell you, I love what I do.
It's perfect, amazing. Man. And that's the thing is, when I interviewed Sibby, I keep going back to past podcasts because everyone says the same thing. Is like Sibby, I asked the question to Sibby. I was like, how many times? She's the esports director of Michigan. I said, how many times do you actually stop yourself during the day and pinch yourself and say, I'm working in video games? Like when we were kids, you never would have thought that having a day job in video games would be possible, or playing video games for, you know, an education would be possible. But look at us now. It's 2021 and we're talking esports, collegiate, high school. We're talking professional, talking organizations. We're talking the marketing, everything under video games, or what we consider, you know, everyday life before video games, is now associated with video games. This is a culture-changing thing. I'm holding up my phone because this is the biggest platform in the world. If you have a phone, you have video games. And I'm sure everyone has played some video games on their phone at some point, and it's literally taking over. It is a generational staple now. Kids play video games. So why not tap into video games and make it an everyday thing? You can get your education. There's jobs in it. Social media games. Like, there's so many different things. And it is wild that we're working with video games. I still to this day can't believe it.
Well, if you're talking collegiate specifically, one thing that I like to remind people all the time is, you know, didn't exist 7 years ago.
No.
So, I mean, what's the next 5 years going to look like? Because we are in the infancy stage here. So it's incredibly exciting. I fantasize about it. Like, hey, when am I going to be able to hire a head coach for each specific game? Right. Because when you get down to the basics of it, the head coach position or the director position of these programs is like a director of athletics, except it just runs all the esports games. It's closer to that than it is really like a head coach for a sport. Because it's not a sport. I've got 4 titles. There's other coaches I know that have 7+ titles. It's more like managing a whole program.
Correct.
And to me, with every program expanding year over year and statistics backing it up, budgets growing and scholarship pools growing, it's just incredible. I mean, I can't imagine where we're going to be in 5 years, but I'm having a good time trying to predict it.
and that's always the question I ask too, is where do you see it in 5 to 10 years? Because it is the wild, wild west still. Like you said, it's in its infancy. We don't have a governing body. NCAA isn't exactly a thing when it comes to college esports yet. You guys have, you have NACE, which is, would you call that a division or a conference?
Yeah, it's more of a conference, really.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people like to associate NACE with NCAA, but what I like to say is that, NCAA has a lot of rules and regulations where NACE really isn't. It's to me, at least, NACE is a lot more about the community, being able to connect with the other head coaches around the country.
Right.
And then also just the competition aspect. There's really not too much red tape or any rules that they set in place about, let's say, specifically amateurism, which would be the biggest red flag for me. If they ever tried to do anything like that, everybody would just pull out immediately.
Oh yeah. When you start talking governing body, that's when it becomes interesting, because you don't know how it's going to happen. You don't know how it could happen, because you can't, like you said, you can't have one title. There's so many different titles, and it comes in ebbs and flows. What game's popular at the time? What game is still holding on to popularity down the road? What maybe have faded in the next 2-3 years that just isn't a game anymore? And what games actually, with the titles or companies, what games back college esports, or what companies back college esports? So it is going to be a trek for the NCAA. I think they'll figure it out, but I just don't think it's going to be a traditional sports sense where it just falls under the NCAA guidelines by any means. I think it's going to be something that's a bigger branch of sports, kind of in the way that you have so many titles, but esports is kind of its own category. But I think it's kind of already setting itself up for that. So we went over some of your personal achievements, but what about Oakland's achievements that you've been you've been there 2 years, correct?
This is my second year. Yeah. So I've been here just past 1 year.
Okay. So you're going into your second year. What achievements have you had already? What goals do you have coming up here in the next year, 2 years, 3 years?
Sure. So let me just review it a little bit. Oakland University started last fall, fall 2020, for the very first inaugural season. We had League of Legends, Rocket League, and Smash Brothers.
Nice.
Had 14 student athletes on that roster. In that first year, actually dealing with COVID, of course, was difficult, but not as difficult as it would be, let's say, for traditional sports.
Correct.
We fall under athletics. So I had a lot of times where I talked to other head coaches at Oakland University talking about how difficult it is with COVID and all the regulations. And for me, it's, the back of my head, I'm just kind of laughing, like, we can just play online.
From home. Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We don't have to stop practicing. We don't have to stop competing. So that was great. The reason why I bring it up is I think our achievements are even, it's even more impressive given the fact that we did all of this during a COVID year, that we built the program during COVID. We really weren't able to see the students very much in person. And to be honest with you, being in collegiate esports for about 7 years, in-person practices are so much more effective than not or remote practices.
Correct.
It's not even funny. There's just something about that personal connection, being able to look a player in the eye and having the players sitting right next to each other on computers. It just builds up the dynamic so much more. But anyway.
No, I agree 100% with you. Like when I was scrimming and I was a pro in Fortnite, communicating with people in Discord is great and all, but when you're with the other people that you play with, there's a sense that if you let them down, it's way worse than when you're just sitting in front of your computer and talking to someone. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's kind of like in a team sport, you're next to someone or contact with someone and you have more of a personal connection with someone. So when we went to a LAN event in Seattle for the first Fortnite event, I was with people and it was much more different and it was much tougher to compete because you had that other stuff running in the back of your head. Whereas I'm sitting in front of my computer talking to my teammates on Discord and scrimming, that I didn't have nearly as much thought of the same things in the back of my head. Like what happens when I look over, I don't see Chuck, for example, one of my teammates, but when I looked over when we were in Seattle, I saw Chuck and I was like, I can't let Chuck down. You don't think necessarily of that when you're just playing in the game by yourself in a room with comms or Discord, which is a way that we communicate. But when you're in person, completely different feel. And I agree 100% with you.
There's also the, how do I put it, maybe the tonal shift where when you're not sitting in your, let's say, room or your office playing at home, when you leave that area and you come to our facility and you're sitting next to the teams and you're in our chairs and it's a little bit different. It's like, okay, let's get serious. This is really practice time. Yep. I'm not just playing another game of solo queue at home or whatever it is. This is serious time. And so there's a separation there psychologically that I think just motivates players on top of what you were talking about. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I agree.
Not letting down your teammates is a huge motivator too. Yep. Talking about some of our achievements, I think one of the biggest one, our Smash Brothers team competed in 2 different leagues last year. One of them being Tech Chase, which is almost like a Michigan only esports league.
Okay.
3rd place there.
Nice.
And then we played in a national league, which is Collegiate Smash League. And that one we actually were ranked number 10 in the country. Nice. So we ranked up throughout the year, and really impressive achievement for us, in our inaugural season. Yeah. Very first season to get ranked number 10 in the country is insane. Yeah. So it's not I don't put any of that on me. I put that on the players. I mean, it's really their achievement, their hard work, their dedication during practices. And for them, it's even the struggle of playing online because those tournaments, Smash Ultimate, were online. Yeah. And if you ever talk to Smash players, they'll tell you how much they hate playing online and how difficult it is. Because,
it really is.
It's such a game of milliseconds that if you have any input delay at all,
any lag,
messes everything up. Yeah, exactly. Any lag. So,
and for anybody who might be listening that doesn't understand what we're talking about here, when you play online, there's certain connections to servers because servers aren't everywhere that a game is. Servers are based in spots, and you have to connect to those spots. So if you're farther away, your connection might not be as fast as someone who's closer to that server. So there's input lag, or what we call just lag in general. So one person might have a millimeter of a second or 2 millimeters of a second faster time than you of seeing it or reacting to something, and that could possibly give you a little step up. And that's why when Fortnite was huge, everybody wanted that 0 ping because they didn't want the lag, because in Fortnite you had to build, and if you wanted to take someone's wall, you'd chop it down and then put a wall up real quick so they couldn't put a wall, and then you'd edit it and shoot them. But if you had a 30-40 millisecond ping, you could not do it to save your life, because if somebody had a 0 ping, obviously they're 30 to 40 milliseconds ahead of you, which is a big amount of time when you're trying to do something. So that's what we're talking about when he says the Smash players, when they're playing on internet-based, Smash Brothers is a competitive game where you're just basically smashing the crap out of each other.
The fighter
game. And it's from Nintendo. And if you have, that millisecond lag, you might not get the punch that you need to finish someone. Someone might get the finisher off before you. So I understand 100% what he's saying there, but for everyone that might not understand, that is what he's talking about. And for your first year accomplishments, that is huge, brother. 10th in Smash, and then 3rd in the Michigan. Yeah, that's massive for your first year. And first of all, let me say this: you're giving it to all the players. But that is the Leone humbleness right there. Dude, you are the head coach. There's some going into this, so don't sell yourself short. That is a huge accomplishment, even as a coach, because, you're obviously heading the program, and you have some of this to also shoulder the goodness as well. So,
you know what? I think it'll highlight for me on its own. It's not something I want to talk to at all, and I think the players probably don't get as much recognition as is warranted, so that's why I try and push it towards them. But, it's funny. We were talking earlier a little bit. We alluded to it, the amount of support that the developers have for each title. This is a really interesting conversation that I've had. For people watching who aren't that into esports, you can kind of think of it like this, when college football is going on, nobody owns the game of football, right? There's a governing body, which is NCAA, but nobody owns the game of football. So you don't have to have a license to go out and throw the football around the backyard. For us, we literally have to buy the game, one. And then two, if we wanted to throw, let's say, a tournament for Smash Brothers or something like that, if it has a certain prize pool, each developer has a restriction for that, certain rules. So we have a lot of rules and regulations depending on which game title we're talking about. And there's certain levels of support from each developer. The one that you had just mentioned was Nintendo, which leads into that conversation we were just talking about. Nintendo notorious for really not supporting esports very much at all. And so it directly is related to what we were talking about with playing on Wi-Fi over internet. The Switch doesn't really have an Ethernet port. So you have to actually buy this third-party cable to get an Ethernet port in. So,
until the OLED comes out in October.
Right. So hopefully that changes it. But you know what's funny about is this things that I learned over the past year trying to get lobbies up and stream our matches live and problems with that troubleshooting is when you're in a Smash lobby, your ping, your lag is actually determined by how strong your internet is and then how strong the opponent's internet is too.
Oh, really?
So if they have bad internet, you will lag. So because the way the hosting worked, it actually takes both of them into account. So it's actually
that
really
is like
bad.
PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3 or 4 was the same way, because if it would go to whoever internet or whoever was hosting would have the internet kind of like you'd go off their internet. So whenever you play Call of Duty on PlayStation 3, you had to make sure whoever had the best internet was host, because otherwise you get in some really bad lobbies. And that's one reason why I didn't like PlayStation 3, because it was always host based for your internet. And if you were somebody over in Europe, good luck, because it's not going to be the best lobby in general. But yeah, I mean, here in Northern Michigan, that's one reason why a lot of games are always super laggy. We don't have the infrastructure for great internet up here. Unless you live in downtown areas, good luck finding high-speed internet. Down by you guys, you have Xfinity, you have AT&T, we just have Spectrum up here. That's it. There's, we might have some AT&T or maybe some cell phone signals that could get you some good internet, but yeah, it's nitpicking up here when it comes to internet, and Spectrum knows that. But yeah, it makes sense now that you say that, because Nintendo is notorious for really holding their cards to the chest when it comes to everything Nintendo. They've always been that way. When the NES was out, they had to have Nintendo stamped games. There was no third-party games allowed until, I think maybe the Wii. They had the first Call of Duty game, something like that. But Nintendo's always been notorious with holding their cards close to their chest and not having as many options as Xbox or PlayStation or a PC. But like you said, with the Wi-Fi or internet, Nintendo has always been very slow to get an actual infrastructure together for gaming online. Xbox changed gaming online. PlayStation followed in their footsteps. Nintendo just does not have a very good online infrastructure and never has. But the new Wii that we're going to highlight in an episode, or the new Switch, OLED, has a networking port in the back of it, which none of them has had before. So they're hoping, and with the Switch Pro, which is rumored, that they have better internet, which hopefully 2021 Nintendo makes that turn. But like you said, I definitely see that now, how with a third party, you're going by whoever's hosting or essentially the internet. But that makes sense now. A lot of people up here don't have good connection, though.
Well, you know what's funny about it, and I'll move on from this because we are really diving into Smash specific things.
That's totally fine, man. People, that's the thing about these podcasts is, a lot of people listening might not know that. And that's the thing is, a lot of people, how do I play somebody in Smash? Well, there you go. We've kind of figured it out a little bit. And that's what I really liked. I like deep diving like this because it helps people, especially in Northern Michigan, figure this stuff out, because we don't have those options all the time.
Yeah. So, for you folks, if you're trying to play Smash Ultimate online, the courtesy is having that third-party Ethernet port and plugging it in, because otherwise people will get mad at you for giving them lag.
Don't have the McDonald's Wi-Fi.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because if you enter tournaments, they'll actually, if a player realizes that they're lagging and they think their internet is strong, they'll bring in an admin to test the internet of each player. And if your internet is they have some way to
Some
measure
level,
the ping.
yeah.
If it's so bad, they actually just ban you from the tournament. They just kick you out.
Right. That's the easy way of doing it. Easy way of
because
doing it.
otherwise it's you're kind of abusing it, right? Like you might play a character that's really good with lag. You know what I mean? You have to react really quickly to counter this character. Well, I'm just gonna go on Wi-Fi on purpose and abuse it. But anyway, yeah, really, really proud of my initial Smash team for that year. Incredible performance for them. We've expanded out the team this year, so we're hoping for maybe even a better finish. But man, just absolutely incredible from them. But I'll move on a little bit. So I had Rocket League and League of Legends too. League of Legends, our League of Legends team was about Diamond 1, which is in the top 1% of players ranked nationally, or actually in North America. That includes the pro players. So it is an elite level. These players play at. Last year, we got 9th in the North Conference of the league. So 1/4 of the country competes in the North Conference. It's typically referred to as the strongest conference. We beat Michigan, got knocked out by Michigan State. So still some strong teams in the North Conference for sure. But what it essentially boils down to is that we're ranked within the top 36 teams in the country, North America. There's about 450 teams that compete. So that's an incredible achievement for me, and especially because that is the most popular collegiate esports title and the most popular esports title in general. Is League of Legends. And so for us to be within that top, let's say 5 or 10% of all teams in North America in our very first year is incredible.
That's
so
huge.
I'm really proud of them. I mean, they have massive performances against just incredibly storied franchised teams. And I put it that way because these are teams that have been strong for years. I remember facing them as Robert Morris University, and Michigan State was good back then, and they had some of the same players, so
that's crazy.
Definitely really proud of our league.
And if you look below me, I have video of the Michigan Oakland battle going on right now in League of Legends, and you can check it out, or you'll see it down there. That's what's playing below me. Like you said, a really good match. You guys ended up beating Michigan and then losing out to Michigan State. So it's their Twitter down there as well. I am not well versed in League of Legends. I know very little of it, but I know it is a massive, massive video game title. Worldwide. This is not just a North America thing. This is a worldwide. Like, if there was a game that probably surpasses any other game, this is probably number 2 to Minecraft. Like, Minecraft is one of the biggest games in the world, and for good reason. But like competitive game, League of Legends, there's nothing that holds, Overwatch is up there, but this is just it is a massive title when it comes to competitive gaming.
Especially if you talk about viewership numbers too.
The
player base, it's something like 27 million people play monthly. And then when you talk about viewership numbers, it actually beats out the Stanley Cup and MLB finals every year combined.
It does.
So I think I'm trying to remember the statistic completely, but it was something like 2020 World Finals for League of Legends was the second most viewed sporting event in the world, second to only the Super Bowl.
And you know what? And the funny thing is, that is not on national TV, man. You know what people could make?
Worldwide.
That's what boggles my mind. Like, put it on national TV. And that's what we're trying to do with my stuff and the One Up XP show. We're trying to get this stuff because we're the only news station that I know in the country that's dealing with anything esports. And these eyeballs, there's so many people in esports, and I'm just gonna leave it at that because I could rant all day on it. But you said you have also Rocket League. What other games do you have that I don't think we've mentioned? What do you got?
So the very first year we had Rocket League was the 3rd title that we competed in.
Okay.
Right? So Smash Brothers, League of Legends, Rocket League. For this upcoming year, we actually added Overwatch. So we haven't started competing yet. And that's actually the players in the background are playing right now in our facility is Overwatch. But really excited for that team to come in. But talking a little bit about Rocket League. You mentioned that you're not very well versed in League of Legends.
Right.
And I'll tell you, as somebody from League of Legends specifically, I wouldn't even advise going towards it. You don't need to watch it as a spectator. You don't need to play it as a player. You're going to find much more enjoyment in other titles because it's I feel like the first 50 hours of playing League of Legends is not fun. And then after that, then you start having
get
fun.
used to it. Yeah.
And that's not something that I recommend for anybody.
No.
So a great transition into Rocket League, which is just amazingly simple and easy to follow as a spectator. I think Rocket League is the very best spectator sport in esports.
Oh, it's so good. And the thing is, you can watch it and play it. And it's soccer with rocket-powered cars. I mean, it is a blast. And I had it on my first episode of the 1UP XP show, and we played Rumble. It's just so much fun. And the thing is, anybody can play it. It's, I believe it's free on the Epic Store. Steam, I'm not sure if you can still get it there. I still have it on Steam because I got it when it first came out. It's just so interesting. It's one of those games that you like, and then you play it, you're like, oh, wow. It's just so much fun.
I love it. Summarize it in one sentence. What is Rocket League? Like you said, it's soccer with rocket powered cars pushing the ball. That's it. You ask me, what is League of Legends? I couldn't even tell you. I mean, it would take me a few hours to try and describe the game to you. It's really difficult. So
there's some game titles that just do that to you. Like a lot, I'll play Escape from Tarkov on stream, and people come in, what's this game? I was like, listen, it's a survival shooter, looter, extreme realist. Like, I can't explain this game to you. And then you go into like a game like Rocket League. What's this? Oh, it's Rocket League. Like, simple, rocket powered cars playing soccer. But that's what makes esports so great, is there's so many different titles that will cater to so many different audiences. And like you said, Rocket Leagues, if you're looking to get into esports or see what it's about, start with Rocket League. It's simple.
100%.
Yeah, it's super simple. Yeah. And then work up to, like, if you're more of a first-person shooter, check out the Call of Duty leagues or maybe PUBG. Fortnite is a little bit tougher just because there's so much turbo building going on. But those battle royales are pretty easy when you have casters explain it really well. And then once you get deeper into video games, if you are the MMO guys, then you probably already know what you're diving in with WoW or Diablo or stuff like that. So there's different branches, a little bit of everything for everybody.
I say it all the time. Rocket League, my parents, not video game people at all. They can watch Rocket League for the very first time and they just love to watch it. I mean, it's like you can follow it as a spectator for the first time with zero context, and you know what's going on. You might not know how it's happening, but you know what's going on and you can enjoy watching it. So I've grown such a sweet spot for Rocket League over the past year and a half. It's not even funny. So I recommend it to anybody who's interested in gaming who really haven't dove in. Like you said, start with Rocket League for sure. It's amazing. So
I know. I mean, the same thing with like my wife. She's a librarian. She doesn't deal with games. She games very little, if any at all. She sat down when I was a manager at Lazarus. We signed Shoot to Kill, who is now part of TSM, and they're in PUBG. And I sat down to watch their first tournament under Lazarus, and she's like, what are you watching? I was like, PUBG. She's like, okay. She didn't know anything about it. And Matchroom was broadcasting, and within one game, she knew what was going on. She knew the gist of it, and now we do not miss a PUBG tournament. And she literally knows everything that goes on. She talks strategy. I was like, well, who are you right now? And that's what it's done. So when you get a caster even that explains it well, or once you dive in and enjoy it, there's so much that you can enjoy from it because it is very much like a traditional sport. It's entertainment. And when you have people know what they're doing that can do it at a competitive level very well, it is awesome. So that is my stance on that. Enjoy it. Find the one that's right for you and enjoy it.
Esports is kind of like traditional sports, except you can go play it. Exactly. As soon as you're done watching, you just jump on and start playing it. Where it's like traditional sport. Yeah, let me get 5 or 8 friends and let's go play tackle football. It's never going to happen. You know what I mean?
Not. So but the problem is, don't expect to be doing what they're doing right away.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as you would expect with traditional sports, right? Yeah. I'm not out there pretending to be, Tom Brady throwing the football.
But that's the thing is, like in traditional sports, I went to a Red Wings game 2-3 years ago, and that got me back into hockey because I hung up the skates for a little bit because I just didn't have time for men's league. After college, I really didn't play much, but I went to a game. I was like, man, I really want to strap the skates back on. And then the same things happen with, like, I'll watch YouTube videos or esports content, and like Dr. Lupo or Tim the Tap Man, somebody is playing some game. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to go play that. And then I go play it and I was like, oh, I remember why I stopped playing this for a half bit. I actually like watching it more now because I just cannot do what some people can do. But you put the time and work in, obviously things will show up. I want to get to the options for the esport minded kids there at Oakland. Obviously, you guys have, your teams, the competitive. Is there any more options, say as casting or production, or do you have scholarships for kids? What is the gist? What are you trying to pull the kids in with there at Oakland?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the competitive tier under athletics, which is our varsity program. I think it makes sense to talk about our club sport program. So we actually have a club for many of these same esports styles. So the Rocket League Club, League of Legends Club, Smash Club, Overwatch Club, Valorant Club, right? So it even extends past what we've done here.
Right.
And a lot of those clubs have many, many, many members in it, like more than 100 each.
Wow.
in those clubs. So it's huge communities. And that was part of the reason why we started the program in general. So for players who aren't in the top 1%, right? You're not incredibly skilled, like one of the best players in the world. You're just good or great, or you just enjoy playing the game at all. There's a home for you at Oakland. And there's a lot of resources out there through the clubs and then also on campus to just support gaming in general.
Right.
So we have this game time facility in Auburn Hills. This is a space that we do host tournaments at, where players can come in and play. And it happens weekly for Smash Brothers right now, but we've done other games too. And then also this fall, we're actually building out a public gaming facility in the center of campus with 25 Alienware gaming PCs, top of the line equipment. And it's free for all students this year.
That's awesome.
So any student can come down into the lab and just hop on a PC and play whatever game you want with high specs and high quality gaming. So that's an incredible opportunity for them. Moving on to what you were talking about with casting and production, there's always room for casters at Oakland University Esports. Almost every single time we have a caster on our games, I'll put it this way. We stream all of our games, all of our competitive matches for each of our teams.
Right.
Each of these games are casted. If we can't find the volunteer casters, I jump in myself.
Nice.
I can't promise that I'm great, but like you said, there's value in having somebody cast the game. It just ups the level of entertainment so much. But typically that responsibility or that opportunity for casting falls to members of those clubs or just people at Oakland University or in the surrounding community.
Yep.
You don't even have to be a student to volunteer and cast some of our games. Happy to consider you. And there's a lot of examples out there nationally where students went into a college program. Yep. They weren't quite good enough to be on the team. They casted for the team. And then as they built up that skill by volunteering, they actually got picked up by the professional leagues. Yep. A great example of this that I can think of is Powder, who's a Rocket League caster from Aquinas College. He casted there while I was there. So for over 2 years now, he's been casting, just volunteering because he loves to do it. And the quality of his cast has just gone up and up and up over the years. And now he's being picked up by CCA, which is the College Carball Association. Yep. The developer Psyonix puts on this league, and he's being picked up and paid as a caster for these leagues. And he's being promoted all over the place. And I just love telling this story because it's like, look, if you're already a student or you're already in the community, why not volunteer some time? If you're passionate about the game, come and cast the games and hone your skill. It's a lot of fun to cast. I love doing it. I really just want to give that opportunity to some students. And we had many students last year volunteer for each of our games to cast. And a success story out of that, I actually had a student who casted Smash Brothers and Rocket League for us many, many times last year. Mm-hmm. And this year I signed him on as an Overwatch player. Nice. Because he happened to be a talented Overwatch player, but to get his foot in the door, I've known him. You know what I mean? I've talked to him for weeks. So when he told me he's a great Overwatch player, let's connect. I'll get you on the team for sure. So this is a good way to open up doors, not only within your university, but then in the future in the industry, because I think it's important to point out that like any other traditional sport, not everybody gets to go pro. No, this is that top 0.05%. So you have to be the very best players in the world to go pro. Yep. And even then it's tricky. So what happens to everybody else who's just passionate at the game or just great at the game, but not quite excellent or one of the very best. Well, there's still avenues into esports industry. And this is a great way to get some volunteer and get your feet wet to do it. So yeah, we definitely support casters for each of our game. And then in the background, production is a great way to volunteer time to help our program too. I'd be happy to take an interested student under my wing and have them shadow me, and I'll show them the ropes. And then eventually I feel they're ready, I give them the ropes on the broadcast and let them run free with it. One of the huge benefits to our program, specifically at Oakland, and something that I'm very thankful for, is that we do have a substantial budget for things like this. So we can afford equipment, like high quality microphones or a mixing board or streaming deck or any of that stuff, a webcam, high quality webcam or anything like that. Anything we need for the stream, we can do it. We have the resources to do it, which makes it even a better opportunity for those who want to volunteer, because if you're trying to do that on your own, man, that cost can really rack up. But for our program, we can do it. You know, we'll set you up with everything you want. So yeah, there's definitely opportunities there. And I'll break back because I don't want to undermine our Rocket League team's success.
No, not at all.
Rocket League team last year was actually top 24 in the US.
Nice.
So again, there's somewhere around 400 teams that compete in that title.
Yep.
It's our very first year, incredibly dedicated team. They probably put in the most dedicated practice time. And by that, I mean goal-oriented.
Right.
They're constantly in the training tool, the practice tool, the sandbox mode, and these custom practice sessions, which isn't quite as fun as just playing the game. They're constantly there working on their individual skills. You could almost refer to it as like throwing free throws.
Yep.
Not that fun, but if you do it for 2-3 hours straight a day for a few days, you're going to get pretty good at free throws, and it applies straight to the game. These players incredibly dedicated, especially the top three. So for them to get top 24 in the country in the first year, I keep saying it, but it's just really incredible to me. And it really is all in their hands. I mean, I hats off to them. They're just incredibly talented players.
No, it's like anything that you've mentioned there. It's life in general. When you put more time and effort into something, obviously, like when I'm starting this show up about esports and highlights and content creation and professional players, like everything the more work and like creating I put into it, obviously the more return you're going to get out. Like, to be honest with you, I never thought I would ever be sitting down with Oakland University and talking about esports. Like, I didn't know that it would mold into this, but once I started getting the vision for it, I was like, all right, I'm going to go on Twitter and start just throwing feelers out there. And the thing is, a lot of people started coming in. The more I'm learning, the more everyone's learning. And the thing is, it's just the more work you put into it, the better results you're going to get. It doesn't change from traditional sport or life to esport. It's the same across the board. So obviously you're a student first when you go to college, but athlete, yeah, the more time you put into your practice and effort into your game, obviously it's going to be showing in the results. And like you said, the first year, you guys have impressive numbers across the board. And you're beating schools that have well-maintained or already a good foundation of gaming. And your first year, you're already going into the house and taking it down. So, I mean, that's impressive, hands down. Yes, the athletes are doing their job. But, Coach, you're also doing a good job there. So let's get into some of the questions here. Let's get into some of the guts that we have here. And this is kind of more steered towards you in some of these questions. So don't reflect them. Just kind of take us down the road that is Carl here. But with your background in college esports and assistant coaching, does that make the difference for the Oakland program? Like you said, the first year you had a lot of good things come out of it. And yes, the athletes had a lot to do with that. But does your background in both gaming and being at Robert Morris early on and then coaching under some of the best mentors in esports, does that make the Oakland program better?
Absolutely. I mean, if I were to draw a roadmap for how this job title, how somebody should get into this job title,
right,
I would almost literally say exactly what happened to me. Be a player in a program under a sponsorship or under scholarship and compete at a high level as a player, then transition into a coaching role, and then shadow under someone who's a great director. And I'm making a difference there because a head coach, a literal League of Legends strategic coach, is so much different than a head coach of a program, which is more about managing, recruiting, social media and interpersonal relationships and these kind of things. Literally strategically coaching the game is a small part of the position, and it's not it's a small part of the position, right? In comparison to the rest of the responsibilities.
It's very different. Like if you're focusing on one thing compared to the entire umbrella, obviously it's going to be very different. So you are 100%. I agree with you 100%, where the path that you've taken, even for kids who might not be the most talented at the game, they might be the best strategically outside of the game. They just can't put, pen to paper, if you will. They just can't physically do it, but they have the mental game to be a good coach or be good analytics, or, when you sit down and do VOD reviews, they can make anything make sense because they're just so much smarter seeing and visualizing the game than actually playing the game. And the way that you went through your path, you played the game, you assistant coached the game, you learned from some of the best people in the business, and now you're head of the program as head coach of the program. But now you have a lot more under your umbrella, per se. But the reason I asked the question is because you have taken what is considered the right path, if you will, to getting to the head of a program. And I say there's no real right path, but when you learn something, obviously you want the best tools to learn something. And your tools have been very good along the path. And that I think that makes Oakland stand out, and why your first year, and I know your second year, has been very good. Your second year is going to be better, guaranteed.
I'm really fortunate with what I've had, at my disposal, especially the leaders that I've been able to lean on. I already kind of mentioned Adam, and I think an interesting thing just to bounce off of that again is like the difference between a head coach and a director, and why I think my path, not touting myself, but the path that I went on, I kind of fell into it, is ideal because, one, I can connect with the players. When the players have an issue that has to do with specifically in game, or they need a controller, or something that only really a player would fully understand. Right. I'm there. I understand. I live that.
Exactly.
I met with one of my players yesterday, actually, and they were telling me, it's going to be really cool when some of us players come up. We kind of want to do your job at different schools. And I'm like, you're on the path right now. Yep. I was in your seat 6 years ago. So this is the path. You're on the right path. But as a player, you're understanding for the players. So I like to think of myself as an advocate for the players. One area where I focus on that I don't think it's talked about quite enough is the difference between playing a ton of hours in your game as a means of practice, or having dedicated goal-oriented practices that are shorter instead.
Right.
If you've played games more than 5 hours in a row, played the same game for more than 5 hours in a row, which is incredibly typical for gamers. For those watching who don't know, for somebody to play 5 hours in a game is nothing. So once you get past, I think hour like 3 or 4, your focus on the title, on the actual game and the gameplay, the way you're thinking about the game, kind of starts to taper off. And you go into what I call autopilot, where you're just mechanically reacting to what's going on in the game, and you're no longer really thinking strategically about what's going on. And that can lead itself to a lot of problems. So I never really advocate for that. I'm not asking my student athletes to play for 40 hours a week. It's not something that I'm looking for. I'd rather them have goal-oriented practices, 3-hour sessions where, okay, this time I'm focusing specifically on my free throw, right? This time I'm focusing specifically on my cardio, right? To compare it to traditional sports. I'm going to do suicides the whole time, just run back and forth, really get up my cardio, so having goal-oriented practice sessions where you start off with a goal that you're specifically working on, boom, go ahead and do the practice. Okay, reflect after. How well did I do? Do I think I improved on it? Okay, and what's my goal for next time, by the way? This is the efficient way that I see practicing, where I've seen a lot of teams just start playing a bunch of games. And what ends up happening is I've seen players lose that balance in their life, right? Where they're doing 40, 50 hours, 60 hours a week of that competitive title. And all of a sudden they don't have any time for anything else. Like, let's say proper nutrition, fitness, or academics.
Sleep.
Sleep would be a classic example of
Yeah.
gamers going way above and beyond, trying to play too many hours when to dive into it a little bit deeper. If you play 3 hours in a row and then you max it out, right? You're playing 8 hours and you go into that autopilot mode. It's not only that during those games you're performing poorly or not optimally, we'll put it that way. But it's almost you're developing poor habits that you'll bring into time where you're not playing for 8 hours straight. So now when you come and compete for me and we have a 2-hour gaming session, now you have the same play style that you're mimicking for when you're on autopilot. So it's just not efficient for your life in general, thankfully. And so this is why I would like to advocate for the players to have a balanced lifestyle. You don't need to grind endless hours. And hopefully this message is encouraging for parents because I'm sure they have, some parents out there have children who just play endless hours. And I think there needs to be more coaches out there advocating for shorter practice times because it's just not efficient. And 2, it's not going to be good for them long-term either.
Right.
So I think that's really important.
And the other thing that comes into it also is burnout. The other thing is you don't want to burn out of the game that you love and enjoy or are competitive in, because the next step after burnout is you just don't want to play the game anymore. And I've seen it tons of times. When Fortnite first came out, and I actually burned myself out on Fortnite being a pro in it. I put so many stupid hours into that game. And like you said, when you lose focus, you're doing things poorly. You take those poor decisions and the way you play into competition. And we saw it over and over and over again. And kids still to this day that are trying to be the top tier are doing 8 to 16 hour sessions. You don't need to do that. Focus on what you need to work on and do it in a window. Don't do 8 to 16 hour sessions that you're going to make mistakes and make bad choices and then carry those bad choices over. Like, it's not worth the headache and the burnout and the bad things that come with it. It is not worth it. Yes, you might love the game, and yes, you can just play to play, but if you're trying to be competitive and reach your peak skills, there's ways of doing that. And that actually, to be honest with you, that needs to be a segment itself. Who are your rivals? Who are your rivals at Oakland? Who's the biggest test for you guys there at Oakland?
It varies a little bit per game, right? Because certain schools obviously have a difference in skill level for each game. But I think the biggest rivals naturally are Michigan State University and University of Michigan.
Okay.
University of Michigan have been a thorn in our side in Rocket League quite a bit up until about this summer, where we just knocked them out.
Nice.
And then Michigan State has been a huge problem child for us in League of Legends because they're just such an incredibly talented roster over there. And they've had such a long, I think the League of Legends team that we played last year, and, I'm not sure if they're continuing this year, but they had the same 5 players had been together for 3+ years. And the coach was also there for 3+ years. And they're, they're in like almost the top rank. They're in like grandmaster rank. And so it's just really hard to come in as a first year program and dethrone them when they just have so much experience.
That's tough. That's tough to break into something that someone has, obviously a pedestal, and you got to chip away at it and let them know you're there. But sometimes playing those games is very rough and can make for a long session. But I know exactly how that goes. And a lot of people always say, when you speak of Rocket League, they're like Northwood. like Cody's a thorn in our spine. But it doesn't surprise me that Sibby's a thorn in your spine either, because I know their program is up and coming, just like your guys's. And I know when I watched Michigan play Northwood this summer, and Michigan came out of the gate blazing. I was like, oh, Michigan's giving Cody a little run for the money. And then somewhere down the line, Cody, I think, yelled at him or flipped a switch or something. And then they said, we're here. But Sibby was, when I interviewed her, she was like, yeah, we're finding our footing and we've made some good strides. It's now we're going to put those in place here over the next year. But it's awesome to hear that it's Michigan and Michigan State. It's not every day that you're hearing majors giving people the thorn in their spot, the thorn in your side, if you will. And I'm happy to see majors making the appearance finally, because a lot of these smaller schools were the ones carrying the torch for so long. And now majors are finally starting to say, oh, what's that over there? And it's cool that the smaller schools started it and are still holding the platform. But it's just funny that majors say, hey, let's go see what they're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, what's funny about it is it kind of dives into the conversation of what's the difference between a club team and a varsity team.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because University of Michigan, Michigan State have been club teams for the past 3-4 years.
Yeah.
I believe they're getting extra funding, but I don't know if they've reached.
I think
straight up
Michigan
level.
is close. Michigan State. I didn't even know Michigan State had a program, to be honest with you. So I think
Right,
they're
well,
still club. Yeah.
It's all a club team. It is. So, but with that said, they're a club team who are allowed to compete in the same leagues as varsity leagues.
Right.
And when you talk about Michigan State, Michigan,
Yep.
It's no secret that these students on campus are incredibly intelligent.
Right.
And so it makes sense that they would also be talented players. When you have student bases of over 20,000 or so,
Yeah.
you're naturally going to have incredibly talented 1% of those players on campus. So, there's something about those teams that even with a smaller amount of funding and backing from the actual university,
right,
they're still competing at a really high level.
Yep.
A few of them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's plenty of examples of really powerful universities in traditional sports that just are awful at esports because they're not supporting it. And the scene hasn't grown up naturally on its own.
Correct.
But it's funny. You mentioned Northwood University, and that's one of the ones that would come up in my mind as a rival. But I think it's closer to Michigan State because Northwood has just been so dominant in the game that we also have Rocket League. In at least
you guys
the
are in the
last
same. You guys are in the same conference or division, right? You guys play. They have two teams. You have one team. I think I saw Oakland on there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Northwood actually competed in the Michigan Esports Conference,
right?
Which is Michigan only varsity programs, but they put their B team in there.
Oh, okay.
With that said, we were the conference champions twice last year. So fall and winter semester, we won first place on the playoffs and knocking out Northwood too. But there's an asterisk there because that's not the A team. So I don't want to take that credit away from them. Northwood, incredibly talented Rocket League team and Overwatch team too, but we haven't had to play them because we're new to the scene.
Right.
But, recently over this summer series, so about a month ago or so, we actually played Northwood in the CCA, the College Cardball Association.
I think that's what I watched. Yeah.
Yeah, we beat them 3-0 in the best of 5 series. Now, I'm not coming out and saying that we are a better Rocket League team than Northwood.
Right.
But that does say how well we are competing now, even compared to last year. Since last year, we've signed a professional player. We've signed Jake Wismont, who's a professional Rocket League player for Team Nefarious. And he had a big part of elevating our play and making our practices much more efficient for a team and getting us up there and allowing us that opportunity to take down national champion Rocket League team, Northwood University. But then also to compete at a really high level and make it into some of the, one of the best teams in the country.
But I mean, at the same time, you're playing a better team. You're going to play more than likely at your best ability, or that team's going to make you better. And when you play a lot of video games with kids that are really good, you tend to notice that you also elevate your play. So when you play a team like Northwood, or you play, Michigan, or anybody that is on the bigger side of any of these esports or video games, obviously your team's probably going to be a little bit better, just because they know what they're up against and they want to play at their best to play against the best. And I always say a team that is the best will always make the team they're playing, close to the best as well, because everybody always wants to play better when they're playing the good team. I mean, that's just that goes down in history. You'll see normal teams. I mean, case in point, the Detroit Lions, we all know are terrible, but when they play good teams, they tend to play really well, and when they play bad teams, they tend to play really bad. That's just playing to your opponent's strengths. I mean, you guys do that well when you play. When you played Northwood this summer, you beat Northwood. You played out of your shoes because you wanted to play better than the best team. And that I think that goes hand in hand, not only with your program, but that, with video games in general. It's not different than any other sport, or traditional sport, if you will.
What's incredibly interesting about this, and this is something that I love to talk about because it's just so fun. One of the reasons why gaming in general, or competitive titles, we'll say, are so, you can come back to it and just keep playing and keep playing and keep playing. So League of Legends is a good example because it's literally the same map every single time. It does not change. You can change your character, but the map is the same. It's been the same for 10 years. They've changed it slightly, but for the most part, it's the exact same.
Right.
Why is it still interesting to play the game? Well, every single time I load up to play the game, I'm put into a ranked queue ladder, meaning I play people of about the same skill level.
Right.
And if I win, then I elevate up that rank ladder and I start playing people who are better and better and better. And so it's like when I sign up to play, even if I'm one of the very best players in the country, I'm the top 0.05%. I'm playing all other players who are around that same skill level. So it's incredibly challenging still every time. You know, the very best players in the country, let's say, for League of Legends and other games that have similar ranked systems. It's certainly not unique.
No, not at all. I mean, Halo did the same thing when you played ranked. You'd always play.
Overwatch.
Yeah, you always play someone that. I think that is what they call skill-based matchmaking. Essentially, somebody who has the same skill, you get matchmaked with. And if you're dragging somebody lower in with you, unfortunately, they're playing with you. Yeah, but I mean, it's nothing new in ranked, but that is what really drives to make you better. I mean, when you're playing someone better, you're learning from them. Even if you get your butt kicked, I mean, you just get wiped. You're learning what he's doing, and you're like, what did he just do? How do I do that? You
learn more when you lose.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
So I agree 100%. It really is very interesting when you think about it. And it like I said, it's no different from traditional sport to esport. All right, one last question here before we get into the fun segments. But what drives Carl? All right, what are you working with? Why are you working with Collegiate Sports? Like, it might be obvious, but what drives you? Why are you doing what you're doing, brother?
Yeah, I'll call back to what I had said before. If I had not been given the opportunity to be on scholarships and compete for Robert Morris University, I likely would not have graduated from a university. I might not have gone down that road because of where I was financially, and the scholarship allowed me to do that.
Yeah.
So being able to give back to what I see as the next generation of esports players, to create a strong program that really benefits the players in so many different ways. I'll branch off and talk about some of the ways that we have support staff for our athletes. Because we're under the athletic program, we have all of the same support staff that our Division I basketball team has.
Yeah.
So we have a nutritionist who's on hand 100%. We have a sports psychologist, sports performance psychologist on hand. We have academic advisors for just our athletes on hand. We have a personal trainer. We have medical staff on to do physicals and everything every year to make sure everybody's healthy and recommend how we can fix any injuries that might come up or preventative care we can do. I had a student come and talk to me today and tell me he's having a brand new student to our program. He's having lower back issues. And so, hey, go talk to our athletic trainer.
Yeah.
He'll do free segments to help rehabilitate your back, knowing exactly that you're a gamer and he's got a plan just for you.
Yep.
It's like, how much money would that cost outside of the university? A ton in the US.
Yeah.
But you're a student athlete here. We care about you. We want to take care of you just like we would a Division I basketball player. So the support that I don't attribute this to my success. This is a tribute to the success of the athletic program of Oakland University in general. Is the support is just second to none. I mean, I don't hear stories about other esports programs being able to utilize these kind of benefits for our players. So, being able to be in a position where I can give that same opportunity to talented young students now, plus the scholarship money, right? Plus being able to use this kind of facility. I mean, I have some players who aren't well off financially who don't have a gaming PC. And so it's like they're incredibly talented in game because they would borrow friends' PCs and go over to their house and play. So it's like, well, can you imagine how good they would be if they just had access to a computer whenever they wanted? Incredible. So
I mean, it's second to
where
none.
I came from.
Yeah, it's awesome, and that literally is the driving force. Behind a lot of people. When you sit there and ask yourself, what is the driving force? You obviously want the best for everybody around you. And when you follow the right path to like where you're at now, you have the ability to help and support everybody around you and make it better for everybody around you. And I mean, that drive, when everyone that is taken care of and you can give everyone what they need and make them better at what they're doing. Yeah, that drives you. Quite literally. I mean, it literally is the biggest driving force when everyone that is around you is taken care of. and you have that at Oakland. All right.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well,
No, go ahead.
I'll go for it. I was jumping to the next segment unless you have something else you want to add to it.
I say another part of what drives me is the role models that I've had in the past and how much they were dedicated to my success. And obviously the other students at Robert Morris, Kurt Melcher being number one there. He was the athletic director who started the program. A lot of people refer to him as the godfather of collegiate esports.
Ooh,
I'm one of them because he started that program, of course. So, him being able to help me while I was in school, set that path for me. And then also when I graduated, to help me move along and get into the position that I'm in. And then obviously I already talked about Adam Antwerp. It's a great role model for me to kind of show me, hey, if you're incredibly generous to people and helpful, then great things will come to you. So even if it's not clear that it's going to happen in the moment, you just go for it. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think,
and you're right. And the thing
Collegiate Sports. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, when you find those role models, I mean, there's a lot of them throughout college esports right now. But like you said, obviously, started at Robert Morris as the godfather, if you will, of esports. But you have role models like Doc out in Boise State, who means a tremendous amount to so many people in esports, especially out west. But even here, like you mentioned Doc, and everyone's like, "Oh, Doc," and gives every story they know of Doc. Adam's the same way. Like everyone, when you first talk about esports, they say, "Check out Adam." Like Adam knows what he's doing. And in fact, Adam is the first one that directed me towards how titles and licensing and everything that goes with it, and how that's much more difficult than people know with esports. I never gave that a thought. Cody is on his way of being a mentor in many facets, not just for the kids, but also for programs around here in Northern Michigan, because they look to his blueprints in many ways.
Nationally.
Oh, nationally. I mean, it's wild, and it's Northwood, and you're doing that at Oakland, which I can already tell you is you're on your way, brother. I mean, you have the history, you have the present, you're going to have the future. And again, like I mentioned, I appreciate your time, but we have to get to our fun segments here. I can't cut these out. You've already set the podcast record. All right. You already kicked out Coach Rob for the longest podcast. So you're now the longest podcast runner, which is great. I love just sitting here and talking esports with everybody and anybody. And I am proud to say that you, sir, are already at the top of the ladder. You've beat Doc. You have beat Coach Rob.
There we go.
I think Cody was something like 35 minutes or something like that. Cody. But yeah, so I'm joking, Cody. It was just the first podcast. So I had strict parameters. And then I realized everybody just wants to talk. I was like, just go. We'll just do it. Just continue. So Cody's got to have his, his rebuttal, if you will, at some point. All right. Sure. So this segment I call, what does your setup look like? Obviously, you're a gamer. You have the history in gaming. You play PC. So you got to have a PC setup. And we're going to dive into your PC setup. And whether you've upgraded it or not, we got to know what's in your PC. So first I'm going to ask, what mouse do you use? Obviously, you're an LOL guy. You need an MMO mouse. So what are you using?
I use a Logitech wired mouse. I think it's called G502. Very common mouse.
It's mine's the Lightspeed wireless one, though.
Yeah, you got it. So it's the same thing, but it's wired. It's incredibly common mouse. I've been using that one for about 5 years. I had it break one time after about 2.5 years. I went out and bought another one for myself because I just like the feel of it. Yeah. The fact that it's got removable weights is incredibly convenient. Yep. Although once you figure out what weight you like, you just never change it again. But yeah, I really like that mouse. I've recommended it a ton. Plus, it's just an incredibly popular mouse. You can probably go to Meijer right now and buy it for like $80.
You can go to Walmart. Walmart carries it now. Yeah. But I mean, I have the G502 wireless, and I love it. The thumb button. The thumb button is just so nice, and it's perfect for when I play Tarkov. I like using it for crouch. I'm like, oh, this is easier than trying to hit C with my thumb. So what keyboard are you using?
So I'm actually using a Corsair keyboard. Frankly, I'm not sure exactly what it is. One thing specifically that's different about it is it's got a noise reduction keyboard. So it's not like the really loud Razer keyboard because that tends to really annoy my fiance who has to deal with me gaming quite a bit. And so I had to go buy one that specifically is quite a bit quieter, although she still complains about the noise. But yeah, I'm not sure which model that is. It's not anything crazy. I've never been one to be incredibly picky about my peripherals, but as far as like, it needs to be a really high quality. To me, it's just once I get used to it and comfortable with it, I don't want to change.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, Corsair has great keyboards. So I mean, and the
Right.
other thing is like I know with my setup, I went with all the Logitech stuff because when I went to the first Fortnite event, granted I used a SCUF controller, but I just in case they wouldn't let us use a controller, I wanted to have all the peripherals that they were using at the time, and they had the G Pro, they had I had the lightweight, just the normal Logitech at one point. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just use the same perfs that they have just so I'm used to using it in case I go back to another event, which I didn't, but still the same perfs are pretty much what they use across the board. What monitor do you use?
I use a BenQ monitor.
That a boy! Me too.
BenQ monitor is my main one. I think it's like 144 hertz, but honestly, I'm using a 2 monitor setup, and the other one is not 144 hertz.
Yeah.
So I play at 60 FPS or
1080p,
hertz,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen any need to go to 2K or 4K yet. I mean, the options there, but I just have BenQ is the godfather of gaming. I mean, when you went to an esports event back in mid 2000s, late 2000s, they had BenQs. And that's what was the big thing was BenQ, and you had, whatever refresh rate was top at the time. I have 240 hertz. But I was like 1080p. I'm not looking to be old 2K. Can't see my guy across the field. Like, I don't need that. I just want frames, man. Give me the frames.
Yeah. As a player, I've never been one to be really picky about the peripherals and monitor being kind of the same thing.
Right.
And part of that, honestly, is I've leaned on friends of mine who are more knowledgeable about computers and everything like that. So I've picked up things quite a bit over the last few years. So I am somewhat knowledgeable. But as far as like buying a monitor or something like that, I'm just like, hey, what do you recommend? Here's my price range. And it's like, boom, here it is. It's like, okay. And I've never been unhappy with what I get when I go that route. So I just go there every time.
I mean, the thing is nowadays it's such a big market that you're going to be happy with whatever you buy anymore. Like back in the day when I first started gaming, it was tough to find a nice 1080p monitor for, a good price.
Yep.
Nowadays you can go out and buy a nice 4K monitor for a good price if you want it. Heck, there's 300 hertz refresh rates now. I like the thing, there's so much stuff out there now. It's just like, what do you get? Like, I just say, test it out, and if you like it, get it. I mean, that's the point where we're at. It's like, there's so much stuff available. Try it out, see if you like it. But
just kind of go by your budget, right?
Exactly.
Because the reality, like you said, can you really tell the difference?
Probably not.
Probably not so much, but I'll tell you what, if you have the budget and you do upgrade, you won't want to go back.
No,
because
you don't.
if you've been using it forever, you'll see the difference. Yep. You'll see it when it's lower quality. It's almost like getting a really high quality headset.
Yep.
You just can't go back to listening to music on your phone.
It's that way now because when I first started gaming, I was gaming on a 30 hertz monitor. I was playing 720p. And now that I have all the frames, I went back to Destiny the other day just to play it on Xbox, and it was 30 frames. The game is still 30 frames. And I was like, why do my eyes hurt so much? It's just so jittery. I'm used to 240. I'm like, what is wrong with my game? It's just the frames, man. What's in your computer? What do you got for a graphics card and a chip?
This is the question that is gonna just tank my reputation. Are you ready for this? Okay.
The thing is, I'll let you know. No setups are a bad setup, brother. As long as it plays what you want to play and how you want to play it, it's good.
Well, the context. I'll talk about the context of what games I like to play, just so that everybody really understands where I'm coming from. Games that I play often: League of Legends, which is commonly joked it could be run on a toaster.
Exactly,
really
potato.
Anything that powerful. Yeah, it's fine. And then other than that, like Rocket League, sometimes I like to play. Right. And then it's just OG games. Like I go back to Fallout 4 or Borderlands 2 or like Fable is a game I'll go back and play and enjoy. So things that really don't take incredible graphics. I'm not really an FPS player. So, those kind of games just don't interest me that much anymore. So I don't need that high quality computer. So now that we've got the context out of the way, so I don't get absolutely.
He's going to hit us with like a 970 and like an i5.
I'll start with the worst. I recently put in a good amount of money to upgrade my entire setup, my computer. The only problem was I could not find a graphics card.
Right. You can't do that anymore.
pretty common right
Yeah.
now, right? Unless I wanted to get gouged and pay like 3 times the MSRP, which I'm not willing to do.
No.
So we'll start with the worst, right?
Yeah.
The graphics card that I did not upgrade is a 1060 GeForce. So
great card. I had
great.
the exact same one.
Yeah, had is the good context there, right?
Had.
I used to. I remember that 5 years ago.
It's still a good card though.
So it works for what I use,
Yeah.
but then I upgraded other parts. I have an i7 processor. I don't know the specific
8700K, 8800K.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm not
7900K.
sure.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, there's
the
so many different
processor-
generations of processors anymore. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter anymore.
It doesn't really tell you that much if I
No.
say i7, but I had an i5 before that.
Oh,
I wasn't happy with how that
i7's
was
going to get you at least 2 more cores. So, I mean, you're good there.
Right. Yeah. So I'm able to stream matches at a high quality.
Perfect.
When I need to do it at home when I'm not here.
Yep.
So that's really what I'm looking for out of that.
It's perfect. All right. So we got your setup, and now we're going to go to an even funner segment, if that's a word, but I'm going with it. 10 rapid fire questions. They're just random.
Yeah.
And this will not ruin our friendship, I promise you, but these questions will be out of left field in some of them, and you'll be like, why are you asking me this? But this is just the fun of the segment because we want to know more about Carl. All right. So here we go.
Good.
Number 1, favorite platform / console of all time.
Ooh, this is a really tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to say GameCube. I have a lot of
Ooh.
nostalgia.
I
for
think
GameCube.
Purdy Curdy. No, who said GameCube? Somebody said GameCube. I hated GameCube. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
I'll be up front. Everyone loves GameCube. I lost those stupid games all the time because they were this big and you literally, man, don't bring me back to that.
Did you keep them in the cases? Or were you
No,
just
I didn't
throwing
keep
on
them in the
floor?
cases. I was a
Oh,
normal
well, that's
kid.
why you lost them.
Just throw them
That's
around
why
the
you lost
room,
them.
dude.
No.
The
That's why you didn't
controller
like
was,
it. I think
the
it's more on
controller was
you.
wonky too, man. But Nintendo's known for wonky controllers. I mean, the N64 is like, I mean, it's one of my favorite consoles of all time, but that's joystick. I was like, who makes a controller like this? GameCube.
I played a lot of consoles, but yeah, that one I think is the most nostalgia. There's just something about Smash Brothers Melee and
Yeah, it's
Mario
true.
Kart Double Dash.
Yeah,
It's just-
Double Dash was fun.
so fun.
That was so
Yeah.
fun. Me and my sister finally had a reason to actually play Mario Kart together rather than me kicking her butt all the time. Favorite game of all time?
I have to say League of Legends. I mean, I
mean,
put
why not?
way more hours into that, and that is the game that I'm the most skilled at, that I know the most about. I mean, I played
Yeah.
it for 9+ years, so that's kind of a given for me. I love that game, but outside of that, probably Borderlands 2.
Nice. Go-to snack during a session
Snack?
or snack. Yeah, go-to.
Cliff Bar, protein bar,
Nice.
either one.
I always like Cliff Bars. I mean, there's some that are like, why did you add this flavor? But like Cliff Bars are always a good go-to because you'll have one and then you're not hungry the rest of the day.
Yeah.
They're that
It's-
heavy.
It's a filler meal, right?
Oh,
Like when
yeah.
I'm on the go and I got to eat and I don't have time to stop, which happens a lot for me. I just grab that and
Cliff
I'm
Bar.
good.
Yep. Favorite TV show / movie?
TV show / movie.
Yeah. So you can pick either or you can have one of each.
So TV show, probably South Park.
That boy.
admittedly.
Yeah.
I
Actually,
love
it's the first
South
one that
Park.
we've had that says South
Yeah.
Park. I've always liked that as a kid. I think that came out when I was like, oh man, 8, 9, maybe I was 10. I think it came out like 96-ish. And it's
Yeah,
still
I-
on. They still have new episodes.
Yeah, they do. They do. That's one where it's like, okay, do I want to be fully honest or do I want to embarrass administration? It's like, I don't care. South Park that's the answer.
You know what the funny
um,
thing is when that show first came out. All right, we're getting sidetracked on South Park, but
Yeah.
I'm for it.
No, it's okay.
The thing is, like when that show first came out, people were so like, they were like, "What is it? Oh my gosh, this is no X. You can't watch this." Now it is so widely accepted and anticipated on like known issues because they write an episode every week. They have an episode every week.
Yeah.
That's how they keep up with the issues that are at hand. But the thing is, it has gone from a show that was banned by so many parents and people to being like one of the most widely accepted controversial shows ever. And I just love the fact that it's made that evolution, and it's like a go-to for people and issues in our country. I was like, how did South Park do that?
You know what's really funny about that? Like, not only has it gone through that evolution itself, but society has like gone the opposite way.
Right.
Where there's a lot more of like outrage and cancel culture going on right now.
Yeah.
And somehow South Park is just never taken down because they've just always been there. So.
Yeah, it was like in that time period, it was like Eminem, South Park. Like there was so many things. Yeah. Even at the time, video games were considered, because Grand Theft Auto was making the waves in video games. So video games were a way that kids would pick up a gun and go commit mass murders. I was like, what is going on here? And then we've come this far. Video games are still being blamed for a lot of stuff, but Eminem is not cancel culture, and South Park is, a show that people turn to look for issues in our country. Like,
diving into it a little bit deeper. One quick recommendation: anybody watching, 7 Days to Air is a documentary on South Park on their process of Saturday Night Live.
That's a good documentary.
Amazing. If you even if you're not a fan of South Park, it's just so interesting to go and watch how in actually 7 days they from start to finish produce an episode. It's just insane. I can't imagine the amount of anxiety I would have if I tried to do that.
And they're one of the only animated shows that does that, which is wild to me. The Simpsons are obviously, they're so big, they do things much different, but it is really wild to see how they make that show still to this day. Favorite guilty pleasure, Carl. Like, I always give this example because a lot of people are like, guilty pleasure. I was like, mine is boy bands, man. Like, I'm a punker and I'm a hard rock, but anytime NSYNC comes on, oh, man, you catch me singing at the top of my lungs.
There's about 5 songs that came to my head as soon as you said that.
Guilty pleasure.
Number 1, we'll throw it out there. Love Song by Sarah Bareilles, I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing song.
Yeah. See,
I'm not going to write you a love song. Amazing.
I'm not going to write you a love song.
Exactly. I wasn't gonna break everyone's ears trying to sing it, but
I have auto tune.
I'm
not gonna write you a love song. Yeah. There you go.
You literally have it set up. That's amazing.
Yeah, because you never know when you're gonna break out in tune on stream, so you gotta have auto tune.
I need to set that up for my casters. That's incredible.
There you go. Yeah, because then they can sing for you. Favorite pro in traditional sports. Favorite pro team in traditional sports.
Pro team in traditional sports. Red Wings or the 49ers.
Wow, that went left real hard.
I know,
the
right?
Red Wings or the 49ers, which I get because obviously the Lions aren't exactly a good team, so I get the 49ers concept. But
I'm a sucker for the history.
Oh yeah, I mean Detroit Red Wings, obviously the history of the winged wheel. Let's be honest, one of the best in the game. But the original 6, I mean, can't be beat. I mean, I love it, even when they're down. Like, last few years, obviously they've been down. I still tune in, I still watch, I still complain, but it's just like I grew up in the era of 27 years straight going to the playoffs. I was just like, that's why I played hockey. We had the best captain to play the game. We had the Russian 5. We had Datsuk. Like, I mean, no more needs to be said. Cat or dog?
Cat or dog?
Yeah.
Dog for sure.
Yeah, boy.
First, I'm sorry, cats just now.
Yeah, I like cats too, but we obviously have dogs. First car
was a 95 Grand Am.
Oh, yeah, you were the one of the Grand Am guys. Yep. The Grand Am was such a first car, if you will, for like so many people. It was either a Grand Am, a Jeep Cherokee. A lot of people had Jeep Cherokees. I had a Ford Probe. 1989 Ford Probe. White with red interior. And when I say red interior, everything was red.
Mine was purple, and I bought it for $300.
That boy.
And it would overheat so often that I would carry gallons of water in the trunk to pour into where you would put engine coolant, because it just wasn't worth actually buying the engine coolant.
Oh, yeah. Spring water. Yep. Put the water in the radiator. We're good.
We're good.
Number 9, would you rather be attacked by 1 horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
1 horse-sized duck?
Yep. Or 100 duck-sized horses.
I feel like 1 horse-sized duck, because then it could maybe I'd run away and find a way to hide. Where 100, there's just no way. And I would get overwhelmed.
See, and I tell this to everyone that answers this question. Here's a funny thing, because everyone strategizes over this one differently. And I think you've actually tipped the scale to like 50-50. I've heard both answers go both ways through so many people. Purdy Curdy, the PUBG pro, my buddy, he said he's going to climb a tree.
Yeah.
He'd take 100 horse-sized ducks. They're not coming after him. Charlie Watson, the CEO of Lazarus, said he's going to horse whisper the duck, the one duck, so he's not going to attack him. There's so many different ways to strategize this, but I think you might be able to hide from a horse-sized duck. I don't know. I don't want to take my chances with either. That's just my thought.
Well, I wasn't given the choice of either.
Yeah, that's true.
Really
You
your
weren't
fault more
given
than
the
mine.
Anywhere in the world, last question, where are you going, brother?
Ireland. 100%.
Ireland.
Yeah.
You're not going back to the old country. You're going to Ireland.
Going to Ireland. I actually have a planned trip for Ireland in May that I've pushed back 2 times now because of COVID. So
okay,
that's on my to-do list. I'm incredibly excited to go.
Why Ireland?
There's just so much to do, and it's got such a storied history. One, really quickly, castles. I mean, it's just something we don't get here in the U.S. at all because we've only been around 200 years or 2.5 years. And in Ireland, there's just so many different castles to go and see. There's also this island called Skellig Michael, which was featured in the newer Star Wars films. It's like that isolated island.
Oh, yeah.
Skywalker.
Yeah, they still have all that stuff there, I think.
Yeah, it's actually off the coast of Ireland in this island, and it's totally abandoned. There's no shops there, but there's tourists travel plans, so you can go on the island, climb up these steps.
That's cool.
It's like an hour climb up these archaic steps up to this old civilization where old I think it was 1000 AD priests isolated themselves on this island. So it's just incredible. I can't wait to go. First time out of the country it will be.
Oh, you haven't been out of the country yet. Okay. You're the same with my wife. My wife, we went to Hawaii for a wedding, which was a bucket list thing, but we have not been I've been out of the country. I've gone to Canada, I've gone to Toronto, I've gone to Guelph, but I have not been off the continent out of the country. But my sister, just like you, she had a trip planned to go to Ireland last March. They were in the airport in Detroit. Not this past March, but March of 2019. They were in the airport handing their passport and everything to the lady as they got the no travel ban because of COVID. And they literally sat in the airport for 4 hours trying to figure out if they could go or not, because if they had to go, they had to find a way back. But as soon as she was handing her ticket to the teller, President Trump came on and said no travel to Ireland, and they were pretty devastated. My family has a big Irish background, and then Alex, her husband, their family also has Irish and Italian background, but they wanted to go for St. Patrick's Day, and they go places for St. Patrick's Day and have a drinking trip and pubs and all that stuff, and they wanted to go to Ireland that year, and they had that all planned, and then they couldn't go, and they switched roles and went down to Florida instead. So they traveled within the country, but it was pretty mind blowing. They still have not gone yet, but they are looking to make a trip over there. But yeah, I'm Irish and Czech, so that's why I'm as pasty as I am. But at the same time, I like all the bland foods. I would love to go back to the motherland, Czechoslovakia, the Republic of Czech. Yeah. Czech Republic. I want to go there and see Prague. I want to see what it is. My grandma and her family are from there, and I've always heard great things about Prague. Not so much about Czech Republic in general, but I would just like to go see it, just to see the history and the background of some of my heritage, because I don't know anything about it. All I know is they're potato farmers, and we don't like spicy stuff. That's about it.
I can relate to that for sure. It's number 2, Italy, for sure.
Yeah.
Like you said, dig into the heritage a little bit, and then there's just nothing better than going and seeing the Colosseum. It's
mind blown.
So I want to see that first.
And with that, Carl Leone, chef's kiss, you are off the hot seat. Sir, thank you for joining me. I appreciate the talk. You have set a new One Up XP Show podcast record for 1 hour and 34 minutes. We have done it. We have set something. I don't know if it'll be broken anytime soon, but sir, you now hold the title. Doc might say, no, not on my watch. Adam might say, not on my watch, but guess what? Right now, you hold that title, sir. And I appreciate it. Thank you again for joining me. Again, you can head to the Twitters are on the screen there. Twitter at Oakland Esports. Also, Carl has a Twitter at what is it? Coach Leone. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
And then also their Twitch there, Oakland Esports. But make sure, guys, if you have any questions, you can check out Oakland University and get a hold of Mr. Leone, or you can follow them on Twitter. Anywhere they'll get back to you guys. They're very good about reaching out back to anybody that has any interest. And you can catch this on View It. You can listen to it on SoundCloud as well as Spotify, anywhere. And then also this will be on the One Up XP show. If you want to see what goes along with the One Up XP show, you can see that on View It or on the CWs on the weekends where this will be highlighted as well. Carl, thank you again, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It certainly didn't feel like it was that long. I had a blast.
That's true.